Friday here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, and so
Amen.
we have to start with the Trump news. Trump was in court yesterday.
Do we have to?
We have to,
Okay.
but we're going to move on really quickly, I promise, John. So credit where credit is due. Trump was in court. Of course, they had put up some barriers because they were expecting a lot of folks around the courthouse. They showed up, and they chanted, "Lock him up," which I thought that's kind of cute because having been to several Trump events and hearing folks shout, "Lock her up," I think I got a little chuckle out of that. He pled not guilty to all 4 new counts, and he is set to be back in court later this month. You know, John, you're like, we have to talk about Trump, and Branden often talks about Trump derangement syndrome. And I'm like, is there a word yet about Trump indictment fatigue? Do we have an artful term for that yet?
It's called Fox News coverage of the caravan all the way to the airport in New York, to the courthouse in D.C., back to the airport, back to the courthouse.
Golf umbrella included.
For hours. That was all they showed on TV.
Okay, well, so he was in court. That's really it. So let's move on. I know yesterday I was caught off guard, John, with the weather a bit. I went to the Cole County Fair. I thought, the weather, it poured the night before and actually interrupted the fair. So I thought I was getting the nice night.
You were safe, you thought.
And it ended up, everyone did fine. No one left. But it was wet. And then I think it rained all night. Are we under flood watches? What are we watching this morning?
It's so scattered about, things we've out here. We haven't had EAS messages all night long like we did the night before. With
Knock on wood.
Yeah, exactly. But we've got some flooding. We've got Highway 94, as we just reported in the news, is closed at Mocaine till further notice. And the usual places all across mid-Missouri, I think folks pretty much know where the low water crossings are and the roads out in the country that flood. But they said at Mocaine, before last night's storm, the number we had was 9 inches of rain this past week or so at Mocaine.
Wow, that's a lot of rain. And we're expecting more rain this weekend?
It's in the forecast all the way through isolated storms for Sunday.
All right. Keep an eye on that, especially if you're near some of those low water areas. Hannah did something really fun yesterday and blew up our Facebook page with it. We've been talking so much about the Barbie movie, especially John. He just can't tell me enough about how excited he was to see Barbie.
Me and Marc Ellinger.
That's right. All right. I do need to do some introductions. So Marc Ellinger is in studio with us.
Morning, y'all.
And we've got John, of course.
Good morning.
Brian Houseworth is helping us out on news today. And we've got producer Hannah.
Hello.
And she did something really fun today. Have you seen Barbie, Hannah?
I have not. I have zero interest.
Okay. Well, and I guess you went yesterday, but you did go to the movie theater. What movie did you see?
I finally got to see Sound of Freedom that came out at the beginning of July.
And how was it?
It was incredible. It was one of those movies that you cry multiple times for different reasons throughout the 2.5 hours. So you're crying because it's sad in 1 minute, and then at the end it's like happy tears. I cannot say enough good things about this movie, and I think it's one of those movies that everybody could benefit from and everyone should go see.
And I think the family agrees with you. So a couple quick stats. Sound of Freedom became the first indie film post-pandemic to cross 100 million in North America. It's also ahead. It's among the top 20 biggest releases, ahead of Jennifer Lawrence's movie and the Magic Mike movie. So, it is. Did you see that one, John?
No, not the current Magic Mike movie.
All right, big time. But we're getting a lot of good responses on Facebook. If you've seen it, go ahead and share your thoughts. Patty says this should take top priority in Congress because of trafficking. God save children. Jason says, been a few times. Best movie of the year. I have not made it to the box office. I've been a bit
Gary Nolan
busy.
had a cool interview that Marc and I were talking about off air the other day. Gary Nolan had Zipra Zeppa on with him, who's involved in the film, and maybe folks who remember, I think it was Channel 2 in St. Louis, wasn't it, Marc?
Yeah, he was a sports broadcaster up there for
and he
years.
was a real entertaining sports guy doing funny bits and all, and he's heavily involved in this Jim Caviezel movie.
Marie says it's the most meaningful movie she has watched in her lifetime.
I actually was able to get my ticket for free. It was one of my Facebook ads, which clicking on Facebook ads is kind of a crapshoot because you never really know what you're going to get. But it was advertising free tickets to go see The Sound of Freedom. And the only personal information they asked for really was an email address. I didn't have to enter any credit card information, anything like that.
She gave him Brandon's email.
I just had to put in, what theater I wanted to see it at and what time. And I checkmarked a little box that said, I promise I'm actually going to go see this movie. And I was emailed a QR code, and it actually worked. Basically, folks are donating to this fund so that people can go see the movie and have their ticket paid for. And they actually advertised this link at the end of the movie. So I guess it's legit then, right? If they're advertising it in the movie.
It sounds like they're trying to pump the numbers. I mean, that's
sounds like they did pump the numbers.
Yeah, and it's been a controversial movie, which, Hannah, you've seen it. I don't know why it's supposed to be controversial. It seems like human trafficking would be something that, it would be sad and something we need to talk about. But why would it be controversial?
I even posed this question. I did a TikTok about it, producer_Hannah, shameless plug. And I asked, I don't understand why this is controversial. My theory is almost that the controversy was invented to sell tickets, because I've heard a lot of people say that it's controversial and the people on the left are not wanting you to go see it, but I've not actually seen any of those tweets or posts or whatever. I've only seen people talking about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, since Brandon's gone, we're going to let you wear the tinfoil hat today, Hannah. But it sounds like, Marc, you're talking about inflating the numbers. It sounds kind of smart, though, like with this QR code. It's kind of like a Doug Burgum style, get on the debate stage, give away some
Get 20 free tickets if you buy one.
It worked because when you did the lead-in is it's the first movie to go over $100 million, mostly because they're paying themselves to go see the movie.
I wondered out loud if the Jim Caviezel connection was like, this has big religious undertones and how dare you and all that kind of stuff. But I haven't really heard that.
There was a little bit of a religious undertone, but it's not like a main story point. I don't know. I didn't understand why it was considered controversial. Very dark, obviously, and a serious topic, but not controversial in my opinion.
I'm kind of like trying to figure it out. And the one thing I've heard is that it focuses on kids being like snatched randomly and going into trafficking, as opposed to the way most kids go into trafficking, which is like family members sell them into trafficking.
Or something.
Yeah, it's actually more kids go into trafficking by families that just say, I don't want the kid. Here you go. Here's the kid. And then they send them off to traffic them.
This movie is so well done, though. I had to remind myself several times throughout the film that it's all based on a true story, and it's happening every single day. And the movie is so well done, you almost forget that a little bit, and then they kind of bring it all home at the end.
Yeah, pretty powerful. Well, if it's a rainy weekend, it might be a good time to catch that movie at the theater. Oh, Marc just showed me a headline that says Sound of Freedom has pay it forward scheme. So it sounds like that whole free ticket stuff is well known and
by design.
And it's their studio. It's the studio that did it that put this out.
Right. It worked. I instantly got the email with the QR code, and I was able to waltz right into the movie theater.
Well, yesterday I was feeling a bit guilty about calling out John Mosley after talking about new hires being unprepared and saying we're counting on our higher ed folks to help us out. Help us local employers out by preparing our folks to, hit the ground running. So we're going to give him an opportunity to explain what's going on at Lincoln. I know, John, you were, I think in your news yesterday, there's a housing shortage at Lincoln right now. So we might hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, we understand that because of a remodel of the biggest dorm on the Lincoln University campus in Jefferson City, that they're having to double, triple, and even quadruple kids up in rooms for the time being.
And I know they've got programs on nursing and law enforcement and some new stuff going. So excited to hear from John Mosley at 7:10. We're also going to hear from Representative Dave Griffith at 6:35. It seems like it's been a quiet summer for the state legislature. There's been rumors of maybe veto, special session type stuff. But I seem to remember that they used to be really dug in on like interim committees and stuff by now, and I haven't. What's going on, Marc?
Everything's so great in Missouri that there's no need to have special interim committees. We just paid for everything. $50 billion solves a lot of problems really quick.
Now, we heard a little bit from leadership, too. The governor, when it was time to sign the budget, they cut a lot of stuff, vetoed a lot of items, and I think there's by law, they have to be back for veto session. So we'll see how much time they spend addressing that.
Well, and there's some concerns about revenue numbers. That came out yesterday that July revenue was down, I think, like 7%.
Wow.
July to July from last year. And, it's hard to know if that's a trend or it's a one blip, but there's been some rumors that the revenues will go down. And if the revenues start really going down, then they should start looking at withholds again, which we remember from the Jay Nixon years.
Bidenomics.
Cutter in chief, they called him.
Okay, other things we're watching today, we're going to get employment numbers at, I think, at 8:30. Is that Eastern? Anyway, we'll have employment numbers out this morning. And again, we'll be joined by Representative Griffith at 6:35. But next up, we are going to get into the daily D.C. rundown. DeSantis is picking fights again, and I us into our daily DC rundown, and he picked a fight with Disney. He's constantly picking a fight with Trump. I think if he just stayed in his lane of just look at my state, look at my experience, he'd be much better off. Mark, you disagree with me?
We're finally getting what America wants. America wants a debate between, do we want to look like California? Do we want to look like Florida? I mean, that's really what progressives want that. Conservatives want that. We all want this like fundamental national debate on what's the future of this country. You don't get that with Biden and Trump. You don't get a fundamental debate.
You get name calling.
And you get a lot of ageism. And you don't get the debate about progressive policies versus conservative policies. And that's really, fundamentally what people want. Sean Hannity's going to narrate it. I mean, he's going to be the moderator. They're going to do it in November. I mean, it's going to be, even if the nomination is sewn up and DeSantis is not the nominee, or even if he is, in the hunt and it's close, that's going to be like much watched TV. You have to watch those two guys go. They're good. They're intelligent guys. They are kind of like the future. If they don't run for president this year as the ultimate nominees for the party, and I still think there's a real shot of Newsom being the Democrat nominee, they're going to be there next time around for sure. So this is the future. We want to see it now.
Stephanie, it's better to pick a fight than pick your nose.
I hear Mark over here, Hannah. He's just with the popcorn emoji. That's what he's just waiting for the dramatic. But Newsom's not running, and I mean, okay. So, and I think he's not.
You sure?
Well, I don't think he is.
He's doing everything you would do if
he's making noises like it.
If you're going to run for president and you're in California, why would you, and you're not running for president, why would you go to New Hampshire and do town hall meetings? Why would you be in Iowa? How come he was in South Carolina 2 weeks ago? I don't know. He also raised $50 million in his war chest. Seems to me that
he's running for something.
What's the
he's
path?
a guy in waiting for sure.
Yeah, what's the path though for him to actually be the candidate?
The Democrats realize that Joe Biden's a dead bang loser, which we kind of already know.
But then they would also have to jump over Kamala.
Yeah. Well,
John's face.
It's the progressives. You never say never.
So if we talk about what Trump is focused on, I think Trump is playing chess. He got a big change in California this last weekend with changing the way the delegates delegates are selected. It's winner take all. So if he can beat DeSantis by 1 point, he takes all of those. And he's been doing this state by state, playing a really strategic kind of behind the scenes plan. Apparently he's been, I think, supported by McCarthy in some of these efforts. Meanwhile, DeSantis is like, I'm going to go on, Twitter for my thing, and I'm going to fight Disney, and I'm going to go over to, I get that it's cool, right? I get that I want to watch it, the DeSantis Newsom debate, but I don't know for DeSantis how it necessarily propels him forward.
Well, you know what? It's Trump's polling, give or take 56%-ish in national Republican polls. 40% of the 56% say they are open to another candidate still, even today. When you get to California, which California is Super Tuesday, so it's in early March this year or next year in 2024, you have a real opportunity that the race could be upside down. You could be in a two-candidate race. And, I still think a two-candidate race between Trump and DeSantis wins that every time, because Trump's base, his 35%, will never walk away from him. The rest of the Republican voters, the other 65%, are looking for another opportunity.
Yeah. My husband is texting me. He says, DeSantis has to beat Newsom in order to be a viable candidate. And I've heard items. I think, how it was posed to me was there was a lot of stuff in there. There was a lot of money. And so even the people who were disappointed, they still probably got more than they ever would have in any other year. So everyone should be pretty happy. Still, we're, a month away from a potential special veto session. Representative Griffith, what's going on right now as far as the talk behind the scenes? Because it's been a little bit quiet in the last couple weeks.
Well, I think the tenor is kind of calmed down since the veto, the governor's veto. I know that there was a lot of conversation. We had a caucus phone call where we kind of aired some of our thoughts, some of our disappointments that we had. In the original governor's budget, he budgeted $890 million for I-70, and that was going to take care of some St. Louis areas, some Kansas City areas, and then, of course, Columbia. When the Senate passed the $2.8 billion to do the entire project, there were a lot of my colleagues, especially live down on the I-44 corridor in the south, and those that are up in the north around the Hannibal area, that really they held their nose and they pushed the button and approved that, with the thought that a lot of those projects that they had that were going to be in their areas, especially on I-44 in Springfield, that those were going to be addressed. And the governor vetoed those, and I think there was a lot of disappointment that was there. I know there were some projects that I had that I really felt strongly about and had some good support in both House and Senate. The governor vetoed those. So I think we were all touched in some way, shape, or form.
I know
we
you
were
got
all
your
touched.
hands full.
Griff, talk to us about the whole potential for special session. We had Callaway County State Rep Jim Schulte on with us just a week or so ago, and he didn't really see anything on the radar for special session and heard any rumblings out of the Capitol in that regard.
No, I don't think of course, the veto session happens on September 13th. That's by Constitution that we have that. But as far as special session goes, no, I have not heard anything, and I've talked with a number of my colleagues this past week, and that's just not been on the radar as far as I know. We're going to have summer caucus in Branson coming up later on this month, and I think that's going to be part of the discussion that's going to happen there as to what direction we're going to go. Historically, you can look. We really don't, when a Republican sitting governor in the supermajority that we've got, we don't normally veto any of his bills. However, there's a lot of people that are running for other office right now that are looking for some kind of platform. So we'll just have to wait and see.
All right, we are talking to State Representative Dave Griffith.
Yeah, Representative, thank you, Stephanie and John and Marc as well. Great job hosting this morning. Representative, I would point out, you're correct. It's usually the Senate that doesn't override, but I think we need to point out them as the House, whether it's been Elijah Haar or Todd Richardson or Rob Vescovo, they've overridden this governor several times on budget vetoes. We could go back to stroke funding, or we could go back to some of the Randy Peitzman thing. I think there was some money over in Lincoln County as well. So it's the House that's overridden him. Not a lot, probably 2 or 3 budget bills a year. We see that. I want to ask you about something else I think is very important, and that is probably just outside your district, but Highway 94 is closed right now and may be closed for weeks in Callaway County near Mocaine. 9 inches of rain. Gabrielle Tyner, of our colleague from ABC 17, showed video. There's trees covering this. A lot of people use that highway, as you know, Representative, to get to the Callaway nuclear plant. A lot of state workers use it. I know the Attorney General uses that highway. What are you hearing? And is the money there in the budget to fix this highway? I'm assuming this is going to be thousands of dollars.
Well, Brian, that's a good point. And short answer to your question is no, I have not heard anything about it. But this is really the problem that we have in the flood zone, and we here in Jefferson City. When we've got water that's coming in, and we've got issues like a 94 highway flooding. We know back in 93, 95, what happened to it then. Mm-hmm. But in this, as the grass is green and we don't have those issues, then they tend to move back to the back burner. And we need to be more proactive in how we approach those thoroughfares, because you're right. That's one of the main ways of getting to the nuclear power plant. It's also a way for a lot of our state employees to come to work every day. So it's an issue that we need to address. It's not like I-70, it's not like I-44, but it's a thoroughfare that we need to be very cognizant of.
Dave, I know the pre-filing doesn't start till December 1. Last year, you were in the midst of chairing that interim committee on veterans' mental health and suicide and had some recommendations that come out of that. Is there going to be a move to do some more legislation on that really important issue in the 2024 General Assembly?
It really is. And Mark, I can tell you I was disappointed that we didn't get that bill, the veteran suicide bill, across the finish line. It's not the silver bullet that's going to solve that problem, but it's still happening every day, and we need to look at it. I think that there's more of a tenor looking at mental health and what we can do with mental health. Right now, I heard you talking about interim committees. I'm serving on an interim committee for opioid and substance abuse, and this committee actually started in 2020 because of COVID. We had to shut down, but we reactivated again this year. Representative John Black is the chairman, and Senator Nick Schroer is the vice chair. But we've got people on the committee like former Sheriff Greg White, who's got real life experience with dealing with mental health. And I think it's something that we're going to pursue. We're looking at departments that are receiving state funding for this purpose and holding them accountable for what they're doing. And I think this is an ongoing thing. We're going to meet all summer. Actually, we go all the way until December with these committee hearings. So you can watch those online as well.
Griff, you're so involved with veterans issues all across the state, like you and Marc talked about with the veterans suicide prevention and all. I know there's an event at the state capitol today that you were intimately involved with employer support of the Guard and Reserve.
Yeah, I was asked to speak at that today. The employer, ESGR, or Employees for the Guard and Reserve, is an organization I've been involved with for a long time, dating back to the days when I was with Channel 13, and even more so when I was with the Red Cross. But what they do and what the Guard and Reserve have done for us post 9/11 has been absolutely remarkable. And when those guardsmen and reservists, when they're deployed, when they're activated and deployed, and they're sent overseas or they're sent somewhere in the state, their employers have got to, take up the mantle and find some way to get the work done. And it's that employer support that has made us as strong as we are with the National Guard and Reserve. And we're going to recognize some companies today that have been at the forefront of that. We've got some agencies, state agencies, that have really been working with the National Guard. And I've sponsored a couple of bills for the National Guard in the last 3 years, and it's going to be a good time today.
So, if folks are wanting to join you, what time is that event?
Well, the event starts at noon, and it's at on the second floor of the Capitol. I think it's by invitation only, Stephanie, but okay. I'm not sure. But I'm sure you would be welcome to come if you wanted to.
All right. I appreciate that. Well, one other thing before we have to let you go, I was at the Cole County Fair last night, and I saw a really heated push-up competition, and the recruiters were out, which I thought was nice to see. But I heard recently from some folks in Missouri that, and nationally we know recruitment's way down. What are you hearing in Missouri about recruitment efforts?
Recruitment efforts are way down. I think the standards that they have for military service right now have been, they've raised the bar on that, which is not a bad idea. But I think we've raised the bar to the point where we are eliminating a lot of people. I can tell you for certain, my grandson, has tried 3 times to enlist in the Army, but because his body mass index, BMI, didn't match what they wanted, he went on a diet, exercise program to try and get to that point. But it looks to me like the Army, especially the Army, is looking at ways that they can look at those standards and see if they are indeed realistic. But I know every speech that I give, I know every speech that Hank Stratman gives, and I kind of stole this from him. When I'm talking to young people, that's one of the things that I really promote, is that there's no greater thing you can do than to serve your country. And even if you only serve your country for 3 or 4 years, and really, right now with the National Guard, it's making it a lot easier for you to do that. You go on drills, once a month. You for 2 weeks during the summer. I think that's a great way to enter into military service, and I would encourage all those young listeners today to consider that. If they want to talk to somebody, they can sure talk to me.
Thanks for that message. Appreciate that. Well, happy Friday. We appreciate you coming on. Have fun at your event today.
Thank you all for having me.
All right, coming up next, I've heard of the 12-bottle bar that, apparently you can make all of the good coffee.
Pop Free Zone.
Branden is back on Monday. We got Marc Ellinger in the studio.
Morning, y'all.
And you just heard from John Marsh.
Good morning.
Producer Hannah is here.
Hello.
And producer Hannah, I gotta ask. I'm gonna guess that you haven't even heard of some of these spices.
That's very presumptuous of you, Stephanie Bell.
It is.
Why me? Why me? Why not John?
She's much more cosmopolitan than you would believe.
John said he used to cook for a living. What?
did.
Oh.
I don't know that I knew this.
John
about
has
you.
lived 10 different lives
Exactly.
before he ended up on Wake Up in Missouri.
All at the same time, it seemed like.
He
I
really
cooked and
has.
tended bar and all that good stuff.
Well, I've seen the book 12 Bottle Bar, and you could have hundreds of bottles in your home bar, but they basically say if you have these 12 bottles, you can make most popular drinks. And so if you're trying to, not be a hoarder and you're trying to cut down and be a minimalist, you can have 12 bottles only, and basically be okay when your guests come over and order most popular drinks. I think, but this article is just, I think, beyond. I can't. But now, Marc, you said you saw the headline and you thought, oh, yeah, that sounds reasonable. 8 spices. You could probably get away with most things. I wonder if there's any regionality to this list. So it comes out of the Wall Street Journal, and it says you don't need dozens of spices, just these 8. So kind of like a capsule wardrobe, a capsule spice cabinet. The first one on the list, I don't think I have. Do you have this in your kitchen? I've got sumac is the first thing.
I thought sumac was something that, like, got you itchy like poison ivy.
That's right. Now, sumac's one of those Middle Eastern spices, and there's a Middle Eastern spice mix called za'atar.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
And sumac is a big component of that.
And the journal clarifies that this is for your summer menu, but I don't know a lot of folks in Mid-Missouri cooking with sumac. So maybe this is more like
Put it in your hummus.
yeah. And so they're saying that's number 1. The second is dried mint. And I'm thinking, don't you just go out on your porch? My mother-in-law keeps mint out on her porch. We put it in tea. Do you have dried mint in your cabinet? I don't think
No, and I
No.
don't have any in my garden either, Stephanie.
And I'm with Hannah because I can't stand mint in the garden because it goes everywhere.
It's slightly invasive.
I think so.
Yeah,
You have to
highly.
you put it in a pot. Hers is in a pot, but it like in Missouri it grows so easily. I would say most people don't have that. Okay, next up, Marc, can you see these? I'm gonna let you pronounce this one.
Oh, cumin.
Cumin.
Now, cumin's cumin's a great spice.
Pretty standard.
And it's super for barbecuing. I mean, it's really one of the great barbecue spices.
And like Mexican food. A lot of
Yeah.
folks
Yeah.
do like
Yeah.
taco night. That's when
Big component of chili and all that
Yep.
kind of stuff.
Right. Coriander is on the list.
That's another important spice. It's a great spice you can do a lot with. I mean,
Black-
all these are, if you grind them up and you come up with, the journal article shows them in their whole state. If you grind them up, you can do so much with them.
So you mix and match them into whatever you need to make. Black pepper makes the list. I know.
Finally,
noticeably-
one that seems normal.
Salt isn't on this list, which I'm like, don't you need salt in your spice cabinet?
It's not a
and
spice.
See, it's not a spice. It's a mineral. It's not a spice.
Okay, fair. So it's outside of this. Aleppo pepper. That's separate. So you need 2. You only get 8, and you got 2 peppers.
Somebody from a Middle Eastern country compiled this list. It's almost what it sounds like.
Well, so
But
the stereotype is that white people don't season their food.
I
So if
know
there's any
this.
people of color listening right now, they're probably very disappointed in us.
They were also disappointed that I think this spice and everyone across the Midwest is not on this list. And Marc, it's your number 1 that you think's missing, right?
Paprika. I love paprika.
it's not
I use it. That's probably, aside from salt and pepper, what I put in more dishes than anything else is paprika.
Where's
So,
the
yeah.
garlic powder?
Marc has a comment on that. Okay, let us know. 573-874-9390. Text us if you could only have 8 spices, what would be on your list? We've got to get through this list, but garlic powder, Hannah, does not make the list. And Marc says,
You shouldn't have garlic powder. You should have fresh garlic.
Boo.
And the thing is,
Oh, do you
if
go pluck that from your garden too?
No, you just go buy it at the grocery store. But same thing for onion powder. Why not just use fresh onions? That's the spices are ones you can't just get fresh normally, which is why mint's such an odd one.
It's
to be on
because
the
I'm
list.
cheap and lazy, Marc.
There you go. There you go.
cinnamon also makes the list, which I think is really interesting. And I've recently learned, I think of cinnamon as being really sweet, but I've had it in a lot of savory dishes, and I think it can be really delicious. So I think that's probably right on. And then is this aniseed?
Aniseed.
It's like a licorice.
Did you say
flavored.
Hennessy?
No, that's a brandy. But
I told you, Hannah. I have heard of this, but I think maybe I've cooked once with this. They called for this, and I went to the store and bought it. So maybe I have it somewhere in the back of my spice cabinet. But do you cook with this regularly?
I don't. It's the licorice flavored, and I don't. I mean, it's okay. It's not bad, but
I'm not a big licorice flavored guy.
But again, if that was your goal, wouldn't you just use fennel? Maybe for the licorice flavor. I don't like fennel that much.
I think
an article in the Journal saying that 2023 new hires were showing up to work and saying, how do I do that? And that they were completely unprepared for the workplace. And I know my friends in higher ed have been working really hard, and we're counting on you on working really hard to make sure that when they leave your institution and show up in our workplace, that they are ready to hit the ground running. So good morning, Dr. Mosley. Tell us what Lincoln's doing to put people into the workforce ready to go.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Marc, for having me on this morning. It's a challenge. We're trying to give them the education that they need to be the experts in the field, but also trying to have them ready to go. For us, we've been doing a much better job as a university of trying to get students into internships where they get exposed to what the real world is like in the career field of their choosing. And so it's something that we'll continue to have to grow over the years, but there's not as much from the academic side on the real world experience in the classroom. So without these students getting these experiences outside the classroom, it's something that certainly I think most of higher ed can look to improve upon.
Is there, I don't know, President, is there a solution, a light at the end of the tunnel? Is there some additional curriculum that could be plugged in to help with this whole, that real hands-on angle?
I think it's dependent upon the career field itself. Some of these, some careers don't have as much opportunities for students to engage early on. It's for many students, you want them to have experience when they come out of college in the field, but sometimes the field itself doesn't grant students the opportunities to be exposed to the real work that they're expected to perform. And so I think it's a larger issue. Work ethic itself is, I wish that we could take a class on work ethic. Many of us, I don't know a single profession that doesn't want people that are willing to work hard. I think it helps for every person, regardless of what your academic major is. If you really have a passion about whatever it is that you're doing, it makes it a lot easier to want to come to work and then give your best, or really, if you don't really know from day one, the passion that it has for the career field itself lends itself to make you want to spend more time getting better at it.
Well, John, we'll call you the hardest working university professor or president in the nation, but years ago, we could never get full funding for the land grant match. There's a big push last year to get that funding. What's the financial status on the appropriation side and getting that match, because it's so critical when you're one of only 2 land grant universities in the state?
It's been a big deal for us. Under Governor Parsons' leadership, we've done better. The Senate and the House both have been supportive. The really tricky part about the land grant match for us is the fact that the federal budget itself doesn't come out until after the state budget has been released, and so we're shooting in the dark a little bit in anticipation of what the federal match requirement will need to be. But we've got some great folks in the Capitol that see the work that we're doing. For us, as a land grant institution, we're in 1890. We're one of 19 historically black colleges that are 1890 land grant institutions, as compared to our peers at Mizzou is 1862. And we really complement what Mizzou does. Mizzou focuses on large animals. We focus on small animals. And so we're complimenting them. And I think that message kind of resonated with some in the Capitol to know that, we're not out here trying to remove any of Mizzou's money. We're sitting here trying to make sure that we're adequately funded so that we can go out and serve the citizens of Missouri.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We are joined by Lincoln University President Dr. John Mosley.
I appreciate you joining us. About a year ago, you were starting there at the college, and I remember we had you on the program, and you mentioned, and I thought it was very important, that boosting freshman retention rate was a priority for you. It was a new program that the freshman class would be an inaugural cohort, if you will, of LU's first-year success program. What's the status of that? How did you do, and can you give us any numbers?
Numbers-wise, I'm still waiting just to make sure that we won't know until the fall actually starts how many of those students actually did return for the second year. But I'll tell you, we built upon the concept. Lincoln University is an open enrollment institution, which means if any student in the state of Missouri, if they have a high school degree or its equivalent, they're automatically admitted to the institution. And so for us, there's been a lot of conversation around preparedness for college. And so this summer, for the first time, every first-time freshman admitted to the institution under a 2.5 GPA from high school were required to go to a summer school program where they took 4 credit hours, and they had to earn a C or better in order to be fully admitted to the institution in the fall. And so, and we signed a partnership with State Fair Community College. And so for some of our students that are coming to college more underprepared than others, we're trying to give them alternative pathways to getting a Lincoln degree. And maybe it's through a bridge program where they take less credit hours. Maybe it's through a community college partnership similar to the State Fair one. But we really want to make sure that we're doing what we can to not just accept students from the standpoint of we just want numbers. We want students that can be successful in college, and we don't want people that want to go to college. We want people that want to graduate from college, and we want to help these students do that.
John, talk to us about the challenges you're having with room availability for students, and I know a lot of it rolls back to the remodel of Dawson Hall, the Tower Hall in my era.
Tower Hall, Dawson Hall, 325 beds. We're down for 18 months. That hall has been around for a while. We've done as many years of renovation as we can, but now we've got to do a complete, we're going to strip it down to the studs and come back with almost a new building without the outside. The shell's got to remain. That's cost us, like I said, 325 beds. The good thing is enrollment grew last year for the first time in 11 years. I believe we were one of 2 institutions in the state that saw an increase in enrollment. We anticipate seeing that again this year. Now we're full. We're having a wait list students. I've got emails overnight to say students are trying to secure rooms. It's a good problem to have. It's a problem nonetheless, but unfortunately for us, there's not many off-campus opportunities for students that traditionally reside on Lincoln's campus. And so it is a big headache, but as a university president, it's a good headache to have at this point just because it is coming through what we believe to be a growth in enrollment.
What else are you looking forward to with this new school year about to start? I know you've implemented the new law enforcement training program. I'd like to hear more about that. What else is new for the fall?
Well, this fall we're launching the EMT program. I mentioned upon becoming president, we want to become the public safety hub of Mid-Missouri, and so we've added an EMT certificate program. There's a shortage in Mid-Missouri of those, and a 18-year-old university student can get their certificate in EMT and actually work while they're in college to help support their educational endeavors. That's a big one. Soon, if not already, we're going to announce a construction manager for the new nursing facility. We're calling it Health and Security Sciences Institute. That project should kick off at some point during the school year. We'll have a lot of early work getting done before they ever put a shovel in the ground. But that new project, that's a $40 million project that allows us to double the size of our School of Nursing, which is a tremendous program, as well as we're going to build an emergency operating training center in that facility. And we believe that agencies throughout the Midwest will come to Missouri, come to Jeff City specifically to train in preparedness for a natural disaster, a terrorist attack, or whatever. And so that's a big deal for us. There's so much going on at the university. It's really hard. I would like to think we've got a number of people that are working really hard right now, and we've got all kind of renovation projects across the campus. It seems to be no shortage of activity right now, and I'm gearing up for the beginning of the fall semester because some folks don't think we do a lot in the summertime, and I can tell you it's the exact opposite. The better we do our jobs in the summer, the better the school year is.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us. You said it's a big deal for the university, but what a big deal for Mid-Missouri in those industries, whether it be nursing or EMS or law enforcement. We just appreciate all the work that you're doing, and we'll continue to follow it and hopefully catch up with you once the school year has begun.
Hey, thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. All right. Well, Hannah, what is hot this morning with you?
Did you see what Zuck put on Threads?
John was telling me about an eating order. Is this
Yes.
about the workout or the menu?
Both. All of the above.
Zuck's training
That's true.
Oh, I rode the Ferris wheel.
It was just the Ferris wheel?
Well, I'm not going to ride that one that like sucks you to the wall and you're spinning around.
The happy go pukey.
Yeah, no way. But I said, if this is it for me, it's been nice knowing you, and here I am. So lucky for me, I'm on time this morning. This menu that I've been hearing about with Zuck, Hannah, not lucky, I don't think.
Yeah, it's honestly, I'm going to call Cap on this whole story, which for the older gentleman in the room, that means I don't believe it's true. Yeah. I think that it's all made up.
You're still wearing the tinfoil hat. It's just for clicks.
Somebody's got to be the resident kook around here since Rathert's gone.
That's true.
No, Mark Zuckerberg, of course, he's been enjoying his new app, Threads, that he thinks is giving Twitter a run for its money. He was spotted in the comments section on a McDonald's thread, and the post said, "Y'all want anything from McDonald's?" So it's just McDonald's like fishing for comments, right? Mark Zuckerberg responds, and his order is 20 chicken McNuggets, a quarter pounder, large fries, an Oreo McFlurry,
yum,
an apple pie,
gross,
and then he says, and maybe some cheeseburgers for later. And
how many calories?
I don't even want to add that up.
Well, he's the guy who said he does 4,000 calories a day.
Yeah, so later on in the thread, there was a UFC fighter who responded to that. He said he's not cutting weight, so he needs around 4,000 calories a day to offset all of his activity.
Well, he is building an octagon in his backyard.
He is?
Yeah. And his wife is talking about how, she had to let him do it because, it's so hard to grow the grass back there.
I'm with Hannah. Who eats leftover cheeseburgers?
After it gets
high
cold,
school
it's
kids.
not good. My fiance, I hope he's not listening right now.
No.
He will put bean burritos from Taco Bell in the fridge.
Oh.
And think he's going to eat it later. He never eats it later, so we just have bean burritos sitting in our refrigerator for a week before I finally toss it.
Yuck. People fangirl over, Zuckerberg and these tech bros and all that, but this really kind of sounds like the same diet as Donald Trump. People used to give Donald Trump so much beef for he drinks too much Diet Coke, he eats too much McDonald's, and here Zuckerberg's in the best shape of his life, and he's eating just straight up McDonald's McFlurries.
I was going to say, Donald Trump is not a 5th degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think that's a very big difference between him and Donald.
I wonder what his time on the Murph would be, because didn't Zuckerberg post some time for his CrossFit Murph, and everyone's like, that is impossible, basically.
Cap.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's doing it for the clicks, honestly.
He's trying to catch up to Elon Musk.
That's what I was going to say.
Elon knows how to drive clicks. Zuckerberg's just trying to figure it out.
That's where I think this DeSantis Newsom should go to, a cage fight, right? If DeSantis keeps picking a fight, I think he should get into this cage fight standoff between Zuck, Elon, Newsom, DeSantis. Trump will get in on the action.
I think they ought to channel WWE and go for the Wrestle Royal, the last man standing.
You could see Trump getting on the top rope and doing the full body slam on the whole crowd.
Oh my goodness. Well, y'all are weighing in on this 8 spices Marsh.
Yes, indeed.
And of course, producer Hannah is here.
Hello.
I am feeling good on this Feel Good Friday that apparently we have not lost contact with the Voyager. It is now resending signals back to us, but people who think the government should be in charge of much, apparently we lost contact with the Voyager several weeks ago, and but never fear, it's not actually lost in space, and now apparently we can at least hear it.
Wait, several weeks?
It was.
Can you imagine being in a spaceship just floating through oblivion? You lose contact?
People aren't on the Voyager, are they?
No, they set that thing up in the 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been going. Yeah,
But they'd
be really old if they were on there.
But
Never
it is
mind.
like a large hunk of metal, and we're just like, whoops. And I'm sure it costs quite a bit of money.
It's left the solar system. It's Voyager 1, Voyager 2 are the only objects that we've ever put up that have left the solar system.
Well,
I thought they solved that in Star Trek 2 or whatever. Star Trek 1. The movie.
Yeah.
Well, NASA is now saying they have detected a signal, so at least maybe we know where it's at, which is helpful.
Just
I guess,
kidding, guys. We found it.
More government incompetence. Thank you, Joe Biden.
And now we're supposed to space travel, and we had this huge hearing about UFOs, and no one was talking about how maybe we might have lost this thing in space. I've got my tinfoil hat. Hannah, you got to pass me that tinfoil hat this morning. All right. Some state news, important this week. Of course, Congress is on break, so I think our daily DC rundown is kind of turning into a 2024 watch, which it will be for a bit, because they're basically just, they're on break till when, September, right?
September.
That's the August recess.
All right, and it feels like right now everyone in the legislature is campaigning for something, but there is some news, especially in the courts, as we prep for 2024 on the issue side. Now, of course, the abortion ballot measure has been in court up to the Supreme Court. Now it's back down. Mark, can you give us a quick rundown?
Yeah, so now it's the language that would be on the ballot. Secretary of State Ashcroft wrote the ballot language. It's pretty crazy ballot language, let's just be honest. I get what he's doing there, and I understand he has a lot of discretion. Courts have a lot of discretion to write what they decide to write instead. And, if it in any event, it's going to go to the Supreme Court or Western District. One of the two are going to decide what the final language is, because I just can't see the Secretary's language surviving. But if it does, then the abortion ballot measure is just dead. There's no way you can put it on the ballot with the language that's there now. I mean, it's just a dead issue. And I think the abortion backers are really struggling right now. They have a great wedge issue that would be huge in a governor's race. It could give Crystal Quaid an opportunity maybe to have a wedge opportunity to win an election, but they can't agree to put the something that's more reasonable that people would vote for on the ballot, and they can't get money to put the reasonable one on the ballot because the money backers want the crazy extreme language.
Now, they've been kind of crying foul because of the delay is what they're, the initial lawsuit, they said this is delaying our ability to get out and collect signatures. Ultimately, this is on an expedited review, so we would expect this to be heard rather quickly. If this doesn't wrap up until September, November, do they still have enough time to collect the signatures?
Oh, yeah, with money, all things are possible. I mean, we've done them before where we put them on. We've got them approved in October. Actually, I think we got one approved in November and managed to get it on the ballot. I mean, it's just a question of how big a checkbook you have and how much you're willing to dump it into the signature gathering.
Well, and you brought up Crystal Quaid. I mean, she had the abortion issue, front and center in her roller derby, her first ad. So I think she wants to, make it the issue. And I think Democrats have been successful in other states where they have made abortion the issue. So, I mean, if you were a betting person, are you taking bets yet on whether or not we see this abortion issue on the ballot?
I'm betting we don't see their abortion IP on the ballot.
Marky talked about preferences for ballot language for this, potentially. What kind of parameters do you think, if they put it in a ballot issue, would fly with the voters?
Oh, I mean, look, if you do a 12 or a 15-week ban and you make exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother, you get 60-70% of the vote for that easy. And the politics of it are fascinating to me just because if you put that on the ballot, 70% of Missourians are going to vote yes, but no Republican can endorse that because they will, be viewed as a non-pro-life issue. The Democrats can run, here we have something you all agree on, and the only person who says no is the Republican nominee. I think that's a wedge that could get you close. I can't say that it would win, but we took a wipeout in Michigan this last year They put abortion measure on the ballot in Michigan at the same time they had the statewide elections. Gretchen Whitmer won overwhelmingly, and Democrats took control of the House and the Senate in Michigan, and now they're repealing everything Republicans put in because of one thing, the abortion ban being on the ballot.
Well, and that's why I think it's so funny. Kehoe took a lot of flack, was it last week?
Yep.
He put out a statement, or one of his campaign reps put out a statement saying that he would potentially consider adding those qualifiers to the abortion ban, and people were coming after him, calling him a rhino. And Marc, you're exactly right. Statistics show that most people would support those guidelines that he was considering.
Now, if it looks like the abortion measure is going to go and it's going to get on the ballot, then it could be either in August or November, correct?
Yeah, the governor has the authority to put it on early, assuming that they have the signatures.
What's the signature count need to be, Marc?
Roughly 200,000 in 6-8.
But I'm thinking, is there any way else to combat it? Because, of course, the legislature did not do IP reform. Would there be a chance for the legislature to refer a competing measure onto the ballot?
Yeah, the legislature can do a measure but they're not going to. Let's just be honest. The legislature is not going to do that. The only thing they could pass out of the legislature would be an absolute ban, which we already have by statute. The thing that the progressives don't understand, and the money folks in the progressive side don't understand, is they want an unlimited right to abortion. They want abortions up until birth, and that won't pass. That's a absolute zero loser in Missouri, and that's why I think we don't see anything on the ballot. I just don't think they can get there with this one because they're not willing to compromise. True believers don't compromise. True believers always lose.
All right.
I would add, and Marc, you bring up a very interesting point too about the various proposals. But Marc, Stephanie, John, and Hannah, I'd add one thing that no one has mentioned. Politically, they haven't mentioned it, but the fact is that a lot of the anti-abortion measures that are in place right now in this state were put in place by Democrats. That's a fact. They did it in the 1980s. They actually did it in the 70s with Joe Teasdale, did it in the 80s with Governor Ashcroft and Governor Bond. The Republicans never point out a lot of the things that are in effect right now were done by Democrats. And the Democrats are certainly not going to say that, but it was pro-life Democrats who were in the supermajority at the time that did that. And it's just interesting how now that's changed, and no one wants to point that out. But the fact is, it happened. I go back to 1999. There was a partial birth abortion bill. Governor Carnahan vetoed it. And what people forget, it was overridden by a Democratic-controlled legislature. 1999. Not 1899, 1999.
It's amazing how the political tides change. And, it's one of the reasons people should be leery about putting in long-term things that they think will fix something for their political advantage now, because the tides ultimately change, and boy, sometimes you're on the outside looking in.
Yeah, and I think, if we zoom out a little bit, one of the questions in my mind for 2024 is, are we going to be focused on more of these cultural issues, or are we going to be focused on more of the economic issues? I think when Republicans talk about economics, we're going to win. I think if we get really down into some of these culture wars, we're going to lose. And Marc, you're shaking your head, but you also are a big supporter of DeSantis, and he is number one in some of these culture issues. And I know one thing that's really been hot this week, and I guess Governor Stitt out of Oklahoma signed, I think via executive order yesterday, this Women's Bill of Rights. And I think Riley Gaines was there, and it was all about really the bathroom situation. I think in women's prisons and in colleges and high school athletics, protecting women who are, might be forced to change in front of a biological male. And, I think he's out there saying it's the first of its kind, but and they've got some model legislation. And so I can see some other states saying, hey, now we're going to do, we've heard in Missouri, the Parents' Bill of Rights. Now we're going to do a Women's Bill of Rights. Can you imagine if they proposed a Men's Bill of Rights? Oh my gosh. Okay.
Tell us more.
Anyway, so I know. So obviously that is at the forefront of Oklahoma, and now in Florida, we're also talking about gender identity, and now the college boards are getting involved.
Yeah, the College Board, which does the AP advanced placement classes, has an AP psychology class. It's been there for like 20 or 30 years. And it has a provision in it, and this is the irony of it. I actually know more about this than anything. I shout to my son, who actually kind of briefed me on it all, because he's down in Florida. It has a provision that says that they may teach gender identity stuff, which is banned in Florida. You cannot teach through public schools gender identity
Even at
issues.
the collegiate level, like our college students.
Well, this is high school.
Oh,
It's
AP,
yeah.
okay.
So you can't teach it. The College Board, their plan says you may teach it. It doesn't say you have to teach it. This is the same thing that happened with the Black History kind of kerfluffle down there, which they ultimately agreed to by just putting in you can teach critical race theory, not that you have to teach critical race theory. The College Board, which is based, I think, like in Connecticut or somewhere, is kind of throwing a marker down saying we're not going to allow anybody in Florida to get credit for that class unless they teach it, even though their own guidelines say that they don't have to teach it. They're creating the issue this time, which is interesting because normally you would think it's the politicians creating the issue. It's proof that academia has become politicized.
But do you agree with me that DeSantis is on the wrong track when he's focusing on all of these culture issues? You won't, because
I do. I think that the culture issues, they have a great wedge in Republican primary issues, and they do show a differentiation between Republicans and Democrats. But he rolled out his economic plan, which talks about tax cuts and infrastructure growth. I mean, really things that we all need in this country. And getting rid of the regulatory state. I think the more he talks about that, the better off we are. I think he should talk about China. I think we should talk about the things they're doing in this country. Just had 2 people get indicted for spying in the U.S. Navy. I think there's a lot of stuff out there to talk about that's not culture war. I do get tired of the culture war after a while. I think DeSantis is starting to pivot from that, but it's always going to be a component because it's a wedge issue.
Well, and I think that when Republican candidates, go with the culture war political platform, I think they lose a lot of the younger voters.
I think you're right, Hannah. And I hope as we get toward 2024, we start moving in that direction. And Mark, I think the last time you were on, we talked about in Iowa how many of the candidates, they talked about foreign policy for sure, but a lot of culture issues, and we didn't hear a lot of economics. Now, it could have been the forum and the folks that they were in front of, but I hope on the debate stage, which now we're less than a month away, I hope we hear a lot about what Bidenomics is doing to our country. Okay, coming up next, we're going to stick with our new segment, and that would be all with
Individuals are guided by trained dogs. The team, I don't know how you train a dog, but to do that, but teams locate floating fields of oily whale dung, scoop it up with a net, pack the chunk in ice for later study. Also on the list, high on the list, the elephant vasectomist, which we're not going to get into the detail of that.
Why not?
This is the individual. Yeah, you're an ag major.
Right.
This is one where they put a giant laparoscope into the bull elephant, past the animal's testes, which are housed in the abdomen and measure a foot in diameter each.
Oh.
Talk about your specialized ag courses at Old Mizzou, huh?
Hannah says she always gets confused when we talk about AI, that she always thinks we're talking about something else.
Artificial insemination and artificial intelligence are two very different things.
Well, and then on the AI front, the gravity research specialist to simulate the effects of space travel on muscular atrophy and blood flow. NASA volunteers are required to remain motionless for, get it, 21 days, tilted head down at a 6-degree angle. And one guy said after the first day, you could feel your internal organs shift around.
Don't like that.
But
That sounds horrible.
These are jobs, though, right? You're getting paid. How much would you have to get paid to sit still for 21 days?
Worst jobs in science.
Oh, that's
And here's our kicker: hazmat diver, an expert describing an assignment at a factory farm where the diver specialist had to retrieve a worker's dead body from a waste lagoon, not containing just pig feces, but also needles used to inject the animals with hormones and antibiotics.
And they just threw those in the body of water? What?
Right in the
No,
poop,
they
poop
just
pond.
They just threw the body in the body of water.
That's disgusting. Like the internal debate I have with myself, if I think I accidentally threw something away, like even in my own trash, and I'm like, do I really want to sift through like trash that I know that I threw away? You know, do I really want to sift through my trash? Is it worth it to me?
That's why they say you're not supposed to flush your old meds down the toilet, because they end up in the
water supply. And we end up with really chill fish everywhere.
No, we end up with
Except the tilapia, right, Mark?
I don't eat tilapia after watching Dirty Jobs once.
we end up with cocaine sharks. Apparently,
There you
remember
go.
Hannah's story that the sharks are out eating.
Is that akin to cocaine bear?
Yes.
Cocaine sharks.
And they've actually, scientists have noticed that the sharks are behaving strangely because they're eating
Swim in
people
circles, kind of.
leftover.
It was
drugs.
apparently one of the Shark Week documentaries. I didn't get a chance to catch it, but they were previewing it.
Now, are we sure that's from the flushing the drugs, or is that from like the DEA trying to stop a smuggler to drop in the bags of cocaine
There
off
it
the
is.
shore?
There
And
it
of
is.
course, we couldn't go without this mention.
and some guy gets out with the umbrella to stand there. It must have been like 15 minutes of this guy standing with an umbrella. How's that for? You talk about a dirty job, holding the umbrella in the middle of the rainstorm for the former president.
And
a logoed Trump golf umbrella, no less.
Well, and if Branden was here, he's like that. He not agree with men holding umbrellas. He refuses to hold an umbrella is what he said. And I told him, well, that's because you only wear like T-shirts and polos. I assume. Trump's got to look nice for court.
Well, I'm sure you saw the gentlemen on Savile Row in London with their really derbies and carrying their umbrellas.
Umbrella.
I don't know if Trump would let his hair get a little wet. His comb over might not blow in the breeze so bad.
All right. Well, my hair got a little bit wet last night at the Cole County Fair. It's been raining and even this morning it's been raining like crazy. And one place in Mid-Mo has 9 inches of rain before last night.
Yeah, Mocaine, Highway 94 is big time closed at Mocaine and the standard places, and they told us over the first 72 hours since Wednesday, 9 inches of rain at Mocaine.
That's a lot. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm a little bit tired. I have Trump indictment fatigue. And so I think we should spend our Feel Good Friday talking about fun things to do this weekend. Now, Hannah jumped the weekend, started partying on Thursday, and went to the movies yesterday.
Oh,
Hannah
I was like, what did I do?
took off early to go to the movie theater, and she wound up with a free ticket, apparently. Tell us about it.
I did. I was scrolling through Facebook yesterday, and one of the sponsored ads that was in my feed was for free tickets to see The Sound of Freedom that came out early July. And I was intrigued, because movie tickets are kind of outrageously expensive, but that's a different soapbox. And I basically put in my email address, told them what theater I wanted to go to, and they instantly sent me a QR code.
All of your info to China.
Just my email address is all they asked for. Mm-hmm. And they immediately sent me a QR code for a free movie ticket. I was skeptical, but I actually was able to use it at Forum 8 in Columbia.
Did you go by yourself?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever gone to a movie by myself.
I haven't either.
I'm like Branden. I fall asleep.
I go to movies by myself like more times than I go with someone.
What?
Yeah.
And for you, Hannah, that's strange.
Is that some kind of like weird Gen Z thing?
I don't know. I'm a loser. I don't know.
No, you're not.
No, she spends her mornings with us every day. I think I'd want to go do something by myself after that, too.
Well, drinking gets you in trouble that early, right?
That's, because of our hours, I can go see a 2 or 3 hour movie and still be home in California before my fiance is home from work. So it's just our schedules.
That's a fair point. Well, Sound of Freedom's been doing really well. They said they're the first post-pandemic movie to cross 100 million in North America. So since the pandemic, so that's really great. They're in the top 20 biggest releases of the year, and they have surpassed movies that include Jennifer Lawrence, and then they also surpassed Magic Mike, John's latest favorite movie.
And the producer or the studio is paying people to go see the movie, so somehow that works out great.
Yeah, they've set up a fund essentially that people can donate to pay for other people's movie tickets, and there's a message at the end of the credits basically saying, here's the link. And it actually was the link that I used to get the ticket. It's angel.com/freedom if you're interested.
So I have a different question. Who stays around and watches the end of the credits?
So
I don't think I've ever done that either.
I normally don't. This is actually a really nice feature that the movie did that I appreciated. Sometimes Marvel movies especially, like you just know that at the end of the movie, you need to stick out and wait through the credits because there's going to be like an extra bonus scene or something. But sometimes you sit all the way through the credits and there's nothing and you feel like a dummy. But on the screen in the bottom right-hand corner as the credits started, it actually said special message in. It was like 90 seconds and it was a countdown. So you knew the whole time that it was coming, and I really appreciated that.
But the special message was, give us money.
It was come back. And some of our Wake Up family members said they've seen the movie multiple times. Marie said it's the most meaningful movie I have watched in my lifetime.
It's an emotional roller coaster. You'll be heartbroken 1 minute, like really ticked off the next. There's happy tears at the end. It's quite a roller coaster.
I think it was a move of genius myself on behalf of the studio, with all the bad press they've gotten about the actors are on strike and the writers are on strike, and then they just do this end around and monetize the movie and capitalize the profits even more so.
I think you're right, John. Well, if you need something to do this weekend and it's as rainy as it has been the last week, maybe the movie theater is a good place. Hannah, again, what's that website where people can go get a free ticket?
It's angel.com/freedom.
No gatekeeping here.
Yeah, no gatekeeping. And Capital 8, Forum 8, and the B&B theaters in Fulton were all on the list of potential locations.
Nice. Well, some other really fun things. John is on his tour day pie of mid-Missouri. I think he's eaten a slice of pie every weekend for the last how many weeks?
Probably the last month or so at the parish picnics.
All right.
Some fried chicken and roast beef, too.
There you go. St. Margaret of Antioch picnic in Osage Bend this Sunday.
And so what kind of pie are you going to be looking for?
I'm going to stick to the finding the best gooseberry pie in mid-Missouri routine. I've already scored pretty good at, I think, at St. Martin's picnic.
I like it. And
what does a gooseberry taste like?
If they don't put enough sugar in, you've never eaten anything so sour in your life.
All right. What else is going on? Another big event this weekend in Jefferson City.
Yeah, if you want to get your white out, you can come to Jeff City downtown tomorrow evening, Saturday night. They have Piccadilly in white. It's the downtown Jeff City fundraiser, which actually Stephanie was instrumental in starting the whole downtown, getting the whole downtown association back to life and doing that. But it's a great event. You do wear white. Last year it was 107 degrees, I think. It was so hot. This year we're just keeping our fingers crossed that it doesn't pour down rain.
Then it'd be a Piccadilly and wet T-shirt contest.
Piccadilly and wet.
It's almost been that a few times. And I think one year they did move it into the link. But I get a little bit sentimental when I see it. And I think this is its 10th anniversary. And I went to a conference way back when I was really involved with downtown. And they told us about this concept of the type of the auction in the Piccadilly. And they did theirs a little bit differently. We put our own spin on it. But I still remember all of those folks on that first committee. And whenever you're starting an event from scratch, it's so hard and it feels so overwhelming. And now, like, I just get to attend. I have nothing to do with it. And the Downtown Association does a wonderful job. But it's a big fundraiser. And they've got, some projects, and we've got some vacancies, and they're doing some work. So, it's nice. I don't know if there are still tickets available. You can check their Facebook page. It generally sells out, but definitely a nice event to see coming up in Jefferson City. The fair's going on still, right? There's some big musical acts, so the Cole County Fair's going on, hopefully weather dependent.
I think another night of rodeo tonight at the JC's Cole County
and
Fair.
Quiet Riot.
Quiet Riot.
How about that for a blast?
Awesome. Well, yeah, I don't
even know who that is.
I got to catch part of the rodeo last night, and it was like little kids chasing sheep with ribbons tied on them. It was worth the price of admission.
Are you
ribbons
sure?
on the kids or on the sheep?
Are you sure it was sheep, Stephanie? I heard you questioning it earlier.
Well, then they did older kids, and they had bigger animals, and I don't know what they were.
A big 350-pound meat goat chasing a kid, maybe.
They actually did have bull riding, which was really neat to see. And I know the tractor pull got rained out the night before, so I don't know if they're bringing that back. But I know the JCs keep a good Facebook page, so you might.
I think Demo Derby might be tonight.
Oh, yeah, that would be cool. Well,
and
yeah.
Stephanie, you conquered a fear last night.
I did. I rode a carnival ride. And it was a really nice view of the whole fair and the town. It was actually not bad. So I got to ride the Ferris wheel and then went to a concert. So little Amelia, who a lot of you heard yesterday on our show, got to go basically her first big concert. And I will say the Ashley Cook folks were so lovely. They gave her, she has a guitar pick and a drumstick, and she's got the set list, and I bought her a t-shirt. So hopefully, a core memory for her of, first concerts. John, and that was something that Ashley Cook kind of walked through. And Hannah, maybe you might be too young, because she said, I want to tell my story. She's like, if anybody remembers my first concert, and she played the song, and it was Hillary Duff, which,
oh, wow.
and so it was so cute. And my sister and I think because everyone else there was younger. So I think my sister and I were the only one who knew who Hillary Duff was. Hannah, do you know who Hillary?
Are made.
There you go.
And so that was really neat. But she kind of asked people to shout out their first concerts, and it was fun to hear kind of the crowd.
That's pretty cool.
Mine was
And
Sarah
she's a big
Evans.
deal right now.
She is a big deal. Yeah, I think she's touring. She's opening for Luke Bryan, and she was opening for Cole Swindell, and she's done a bunch of really great duets. So it was a huge get for Cole County. So shout out to the folks who are working the fair. Lots of law enforcement, other folks, making sure everyone's safe out there. So it's a huge effort and huge for the town.
Not going to see her again at the Cole County Fair.
Probably not. John,
Hannah.
who was your first concert?
I think Bob Seger.
Oh, that's nice. Mark, do you remember your first concert?
Oh my gosh. I think I saw the Monkees.
Really?
Yeah.
Hannah, what's your first concert?
Sarah Evans.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is
Yeah.
good.
That's
And
very-
actually, they had a little 3-piece opener at the fair last night, and I heard a Sarah Evans song, and it was so good. So coming up next, we're gonna have to get rolling here. I'm gonna get off my time schedule and lose my gold star that I awarded myself.
We never do that
earlier
around here.
today. But the morning bell, and this time, Marc Ellinger is going to give you the twist.
their retail side. So if you're buying retail goods, particularly looking for a deal, Amazon hits it out of the park. So
it's not just a convenience thing either. It's a price point with Amazon, isn't it?
And that's, I think, really the key there is, look, you've got high dollar items, iPhones not selling, and the bargain shopping starting to go on. The other thing that was interesting with Amazon, they have a thing called Amazon Web Services. Most people know AWS, which is the backbone of a lot of business sites. And that's their future. That's the big long-term future for Amazon. AWS missed its revenue targets badly, which shows that future business expansion, which is how they hit their revenue targets, is starting to draw back. So while the economy added jobs and unemployment's down, look at iPhones, look at AWS.
AWS now has a frown instead of a smile for their logo. Huh?
There's crazy stuff going on out in the economy right now, and nobody quite knows what's happening. And I think the government just continues to throw gasoline on a fire, and sometimes it's got to explode.
I think I can explain some of this, though. I mean, I'm not buying an iPhone right now, and neither are you, frankly, because the new iPhone is coming out in September, I think, or late September. And so, I should have bought one, but I'm waiting because I'm like, why would I get the old iPhone when the new one's available here soon? I think that makes sense. And then also on Amazon, I would say, there's a lot of back-to-school shopping going on now. And we talked about how it can be a scavenger hunt now that their lists have gotten so specific. So see.
Is this a tax-free weekend?
I believe it is. Yeah.
It is.
So if you're in the market for your school supplies, and but you are speaking of bargain shopping versus expensive shopping. The other data I saw out this week was that parents are deciding to do school supplies and back to school shopping, a lot of secondhand stuff, and people just aren't buying new, which is kind of what you're saying about the iPhone. And even in my own life, my kids have their backpacks from last year, and we've done everyone gets a new backpack. And this year I'm like, you know what? Those things get trashed anyway. I'm like, they can just use their backpack from last year. And apparently I'm not the only parent who is kind of taking that stance.
There's weird stuff going on out there. Nobody's got their finger on it, but I think people are pulling back.
Winners and losers of the week. Branden did leave us behind with his nomination, and he wanted to nominate that Columbia bus rider that said, hey, it's not anyone else's responsibility to pay for my bus fare. So that in honor of Branden. John, you got anybody this week?
I've got losers.
Okay.
How about the guy from the state of California facing drunk boating charges after he crashed the boat into the house at high speed at the Lake of the Ozarks? 47-year-old Adam Ramirez facing felony drunk driving charges, and the passengers, all 8 of them, ended up in the hospital. Another loser, Redbird Management for trading away the ball team this week.
Marc's got his Cardinals shirt on today, and actually I have a St. Louis shirt on too.
So I was actually going to say winner, the Cardinals, for trading away people and picking up lots of talent, because we need lots of talent, because this year is a lost cause. It's time to start thinking about next year. I'll say a loser is Jack Smith, the special U.S. attorney who's indicted Trump. That indictment, if you actually read it, is a load of horse you-know-what. It is absolutely nothing in there that will survive in an appellate court. His first indictment was, pretty solid. I think everybody agrees. You may not like it, but it's pretty solid. He just ruined any reputation he had by filing this junky indictment.
So, loser of the week. Now, one question I have, we heard news from a former governor this week about Jay Nixon joining the No Labels effort. And, you and I got talking about this, Marc, because he's saying he's in for ballot integrity, to allow these people to actually get on the ballot. And it's different because they're not a party and all of this. But does that make Jay Nixon a loser or a winner? Does that make No Labels a loser or a winner?
Make him a libertarian?
Well, I'll say No Labels is a loser for picking up Jay Nixon, but that's I'll just throw that one right out there. I mean, look, that No Labels, I don't understand that. They publicly don't say a lot, but they kind of privately are saying they're only going to put a candidate up if Joe Biden is the Democrat nominee. I don't think he'll be the Democrat nominee, so it won't matter. And that they'll only, and Donald Trump is the Republican nominee because they don't want Donald Trump or Joe Biden. I get it, but it's not going to happen. Yeah. I mean, and getting on a ballot for a political party is relatively difficult unless you're an established political party like the Republican Party or the Democrat Party.
But even the
getting on as a candidate is really hard. And getting on as a candidate when you're not going to decide whether you're going to have a candidate on the ballot and who that candidate is until after the other parties select, there's no way they're going to be able to play in most of the places.
Yeah, because the Libertarians have been on that for a long time, saying even though they're an established political party, it's next to impossible in some states for them to get their candidate on the actual ballot. And, I brought that up with you, but you're saying because No Labels has said, we're not an actual political party, that it would be more difficult for them. And then it's also a timing issue, right?
Yeah, I mean, it in a lot of states, it's a lot of signatures to get on a ballot. There are some really tough ballot access rules in some states, and it's not just signature ballot access; it's other things that are provided. It's almost an impossible task. I mean, Ross Perot got himself on the ballot in, I think, every state. Maybe one or two he couldn't get on the ballot, and it cost him in 1980 or 1992. It cost him like $100 million to be able to do ballot access everywhere in the nation. It's hard.
And he came back to play the ultimate spoiler.
Yeah. We would have had George H.W. Bush for a second term and no Bill Clinton had Ross Perot not been on the ballot.
And for the major parties, I think I don't think I fully appreciated the ballot access requirements until, and folks have been talking about the judge that was picked in this latest Trump indictment and about whether or not they'll have the trial actually there, because the polling is 92% of people are Democrats inside of Washington, D.C. And it's funny, and hearing that in this ballot access conversation, I remember being I think I was at CPAC, but I was in D.C., and there was a guy with the actual petition to put Trump on the ballot, because even though he was D.C. has special requirements that even if you're a part of the party, you have to have so many signatures. And in D.C., it's harder than you would think to get to find Republicans who are registered there. And so he was out there, and I thought it was really cool. I was like, oh, that's so neat, seeing the petition and seeing it actually work. But it's something that, with the major political parties, you don't even think about.
Yeah, I mean, we just assume that whoever the political party nominee is, a Republican or Democrat, will automatically be on the ballot. Not everywhere, but it's pretty consistently across the country. It's not that hard for the two major parties because a lot of places base base their decision on who's on the ballot as a party by how many votes or what percentage of votes they got in the prior election, and the two parties always get enough or close to enough.
Well, I have a nomination for winner of the week, and that comes from someone else. The winner they nominated was Brian Houseworth. I heard from a local attorney who really appreciates our live and local coverage and says Brian's one of the few people who keeps an eagle eye on the courthouses, and they really appreciate him doing that. And I know there's been a lot of activity in Boone here as of late.
You mean the armadillo killer?
Yeah. And that story, we have to nominate Brian for winner of the week for that story.
Yes, we do.
Was insane. Just a perfect description. And again, I wish I had a dash cam of Brian's face, because he said he was so embarrassed hitting this armadillo and the sound. But I just can't. I can see the look on his face and how bad he felt for the armadillo, I'm sure, but also the noise and waking everyone up. We didn't get exactly what time this occurred, but I guess probably he was headed in for a morning show or something.
After hours, for sure, apparently.
Horrible. All right, and then I think anyone else got more winners and losers of the week?
Well, even you could say the U.S. women's soccer team might be a winner because they survived. Is that winning? I don't know if surviving is winning or not, but they survived just so they get to play Sunday morning at 5 a.m. our time against Sweden, the team that has knocked them out of the last two Olympics. So I'd be a little worried if I was a U.S. women's soccer fan.
Is anybody watching?
I don't know anybody that sets their alarm for 5 a.m. Do you?
I do not. Any other, John, you got any other winners and losers of the week?
I'm pretty much there with it. I had my losers, and I don't know. I'm still out there on some of the Cardinals trades and Flaherty and some of these guys. But like you said, we're getting some new prospects coming into old St. Louis.
I'll give you one more winner. Mizzou football started their camp for the fall. And, that means...
Battling for QB.
That means we're, I think, actually less than a month away now from the start of college football season. That makes us all winners.
I know. I did see
Thursday night first game for the Tigers.
I saw a post from our former family member, Brad Trinago, about Mizzou football, and I think he did say we're about a month out. So that was really neat to see, and I don't know about you, but I'm ready for some fall weather. We got a nice nomination. Ken says Nixon is a loser on the no labels thing. Tara says, I nominate Marc. I have appreciated his commentary this morning on the abortion IP. So congrats, Marc. Thanks for
very nice. My new favorite person.
And nobody called him out for saying Missouri today.
Oh yeah, people did not like that. And Marc is a staunch Missouri person, which you have in common with Jay Nixon. And people were not happy in his interview that he used the word Missouri.
But he also said Missouri once too.
It's Missouri. Let's just be clear. It's Missouri.
I don't think.
Thank you, John Ashcroft.
We'll see. We should have that as the standard question for every candidate.
They did that once at the state capitol with state employees on their state employee day. And they did a Missouri competition, and you went up to the little kiosk, and they gave you whichever shirt. One said Missouri, UH. One said Missouri, EE.
I like that.
And I think the Missouri won overwhelmingly.
Ooh.
Yeah, I guess some people just don't understand how to say the state they live in.
We're gonna
Binder or Binder Lake.
Yeah, that's another good one. Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to get with our news partners, KMIZ. They have that question of the day every now and again. I think yesterday their question was, do you agree with the Trump indictments? And I think we know exactly where that thing went. But I think we're going to have to get them in on our Missouri debates. Well, let me go back to Tara's comment, Marc, about the abortion IP. We talked a little bit about how we think it's going to hit again or it could be on the ballot in 2024. But there's so much. It's we've been in this kind of procedural quagmire. It went up to the Supreme Court, but really the news is they've set a trial date.
Yeah, in September there's going to be a trial, albeit it's going to be a trial just on the language of the ballot, so it's a fairly quick trial. And then that will be expedited up to the Court of Appeals or potentially the Supreme Court, and we'll probably have an answer by probably the end of September, early October.
All right, and that's still, you think, enough time if they have the funds to collect the signatures?
If they want to drop $7 million, $8 million, yeah, they can get the signatures.
All right, David is weighing in. He says it's Missouri, just like it's not Mississippi. I tend to agree with that. I'm sorry, Marc.
We're gonna do. Are we gonna actually do Illinois versus Illinois on top of it? Come on.
And Dale nominates Branden for Loser of the Week for playing hooky today.
There you
No
go.
worries. Branden will be back on Monday. And Hannah, are you going to nominate anybody else for actually paying for your free movie ticket? You owe somebody a thank you, right?
Yeah. I don't know who to thank, but thank you to the person who made that possible.
All right. Well, I know we are looking forward to Monday. If you've missed the interviews this morning, you really should go back and listen to John Mosley, president of Lincoln University. He gave us some really cool insights about what is coming up and what we're expecting at Lincoln University.
Growing enrollment.
He said one of only 2 universities in the entire state that have enrollment numbers that are up.
And they're at capacity and they've got a wait list.
Yeah.
I thought that was fascinating to hear.
And they don't have enough dorm rooms.
Yeah. Well, housing shortage, right? We've heard a lot about that. And now I guess Lincoln is adding to our issues. But he said that dorm is only down for 18 months. So maybe when it comes back, I think they should be fine.
So they're gutting what a lot of people know as the Tower Dorm there along Dunklin Street. It's Dawson Hall at Lincoln in Jefferson City, and they're gutting it and going back in. That's the high-rise dorm on Lincoln University's campus.
Yeah, and I was excited to hear about that new program. He said EMS certification.
Yeah.
I love to hear when our universities are actually and our other institutions are listening to the local employers and local business people and our local public servants. And when we're saying, hey, we need help here, when we need help with nursing, law enforcement, it sounds like Lincoln is stepping up, and it sounds like they heard that need for additional EMS certifications, and they're going to be able to offer that. So that was really exciting as well. Okay, coming up next, we are going to have leftovers. There are a few things still in the
City are doing kind of a neat thing this week at the Cole County JC's Fair. It's called Stop the Bleed and CPR training. They've got some very almost creepy, realistic mannequins out there that have prosthetic limbs with injuries, and they can simulate gunshot wounds and pump fake blood out. And they've been getting quite the crowd out there. The kids enjoy it, and they're helping people learn basic CPR skills and stop the bleed, and goes on all week at the fair, and the training's free.
You know, I walked by that yesterday and kind of did a double take with all the body parts sitting out.
They've got it down to a science, and it's, you know, and if you think you know how to do CPR and all that stuff, it's kind of an eye-opener.
Oh, good. Well, if you haven't been to the fair, it might be, I see the sun is shining here in mid-Missouri, so it might be a good night to check it out. Mark, what do you got in the fridge?
So the American Academy of Pediatrics, all the pediatricians, has voted unanimously, all 18 members of their board, to endorse and reaffirm their stance that gender transition care for juveniles is good and safe and positive, but in light of the fact that the rest of the world is repealing all those guidelines, they will open a inquiry into the evidence. But in the meantime, they're sticking with their position and doubling down.
The American, say that name again,
The
American?
American Academy of Pediatrics.
Where's their headquarters? I'm going to assume on the coast. There is some regionality to some of these things. Earlier, the Wall Street Journal told us that we only needed 8 spices in our spice cabinet, and I don't think they're right. What'd you say this is, Hannah? A cap? Is that the Gen Z term? They're
Yeah,
lying.
I'm calling cap on the whole thing.
They left out salt, first of all, which apparently isn't a spice, but Hannah wants garlic powder. Other people want basil. What else did they leave out? Paprika.
Paprika. How do you leave out paprika?
Oregano.
All right. Well,
Oregano.
the Wall Street Journal might also be lying to us about this. They're saying the Canadian tuxedo is just fine, that you can wear denim on denim, even to work. And you just have to follow certain rules.
But only in Canada.
No, you can wear it here. So I'm thinking if you're headed to the fair tonight and you were thinking about wearing your denim on denim, but you wanted to wear it to work too, according to, Wall Street Journal, all the business folks, totally fine.
I don't know. I thought denim on denim went out in the 70s.
All I see is this picture, and Hannah, I'm sure you've seen this. Remember when Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears wore the denim outfit?
Do I remember, or have I seen photos of it?
For sure. Okay.
And the fact that you're able to find that photo is proof of why you should not wear denim on denim.
Hannah, it was 2001. You were technically alive.
I mean, I was a baby, but okay.
I am glad to see this coming back. I probably have 5 or more denim outfits, dresses, whatever. And so I'm glad to see this. I don't know that I would wear 2 separate pieces that are denim.
My question is to the 2 legal counselors in the room. What do you think the presiding judge in your jurisdictions would say if you showed up in denim as the attorney?
I would say I would encourage my opposing counsel to find out.
I've noticed that the dress and the attire in the courthouse has gotten a little bit more lax, especially post-pandemic, and I, for one, don't appreciate it. But I haven't heard the judges officially weigh in.
Stephanie, I have something for you.
Okay.
I figured you'd be really proud of me for doing this. When I went to the movie theater yesterday,
By yourself,
Yes.
which I still can't get over.
by myself, I was behind a large group of older ladies in line at
Are you
the ticket
calling me
counter.
an older lady?
No.
Okay.
I would never do that. That's Branden that does that. He takes care of it for me. But there were 2 of these ladies trying to pose in their pink outfits in front of the big poster on the wall, the big Barbie poster. And I walked by and I was like, would you like for me to take your photo? And they were so cute. They were like, yes, please. And it was just a wholesome experience. And it's so fun to see people dressing up to go see the Barbie movie.
It really is. And I will, I give your generation a lot of grief, and you might be showing up to work without the ability to perform the tasks, at least according to the Wall Street Journal. I did say yesterday there are some diamonds in the rough, but I will
Which is
say
one of the nicest things Stephanie's ever said to me.
But y'all are some great hype people. You can take photos and you know how to hype people up. I saw people at the fair yesterday, and this 20-year-old was like, "Oh, your outfit is so cute," and I was like, I would never say that to a random stranger. But y'all know how to hype people up, and there should be more of that in the world. So I appreciate that. All right, next up is Branden's dad's favorite show.